us into this, and this is this very, very important point. Free will matters, and Christians don't understand free will very well. It's obvious because they look at the world and they a lot of times they don't really understand like people. It comes to answer prayer like I don't understand why that prayer wasn't answered. I don't understand like because there's free will involved here. Particularly when it involves other people. So that's why there's 7 billion people on the planet. Guess what? There's going to be, I don't believe in the one anymore in the sense of there's one person for you and there's only one person uniquely for you. I think there's a lot of people who could be the one for you. They have the right, there's enough chemistry where you would be a great couple, but there's several of them and you just find them. I mean, it goes off of free will because, and this is where a lot of people, and I've been told this, I've gotten this great advice. Well, you're just going to get who you get. And that's not really good advice because now it's just like, well, whatever I get, I guess that's just what I'm going to get. And that's not how relationships work. So I've noticed that free will is very important, and we can discuss this more on as this session goes.
Yeah, Matt, free will is important, especially when you consider how, that was one thing we were given. We have free will as people, and we as Christians have free will, and we as individuals have free will. Why would we want to throw that away just for the sake of relationship?
And I think that originally, just how there was Adam and then Eve was made for him, but because of some choices that Eve made, that made that union not the true, like not what it could have been if she would have avoided the listening to the snake, of course. I do think that there is a soulmate, but it just, because of free will, going back to free will, that soulmate can change. Like it can be somebody different. There can be multiple people because of the decisions that that person has made using their free will. But I definitely think there is that one person out there, and God has a will for them to be out there, but it's just up to them if they're going to keep on the path that they need to in order for you to meet them and become their soulmate. Same with that person as well, both sides.
True. And if they don't choose to, I guess, go the path where it would come to you, God will have someone else out there for you. You're not just like, well, there's just one human being and they made a decision to not go the way that God wants them to go. So we're never going to get married. So I guess I'm never going to get married. No, God will have someone else. That's why I say God will have multiple, I guess, I don't want to say candidates, but there'll be other people out there. Free will takes someone away by their own free will. God will say, well, that's all right, because I got someone else. I mean, there's always going to be that. There's his perfect will and there's his acceptable will. And I mean, I don't want us to stray off of a relationship talk going into a theological one, but relationships, it really makes a big impact. Like, maybe there's some girl in the middle of Montana that would have been perfect for me, but she decided to marry somebody else. And now Matthew's soulmate is now married to some other guy and they're happily married, and that's never going to happen for me. So does that mean that Matthew's never going to get married? Or does that mean that God has someone else for Matthew? I mean, and I'm just doing a hypothetical. So it just kind of paints the picture to where, well, God's like, well, you know what? Don't worry about it. There will be somebody else. So it's that, people in control of our lives. We make different paths. I mean, as Christians, we want God to direct our steps, but sometimes we help them out and God just has a rerouting, like our GPS says, well, rerouting, he'll always get you back where you need to go, but you might take a scenic route and might pick something up that way along the way. So it's kind of it's complicated if you haven't figured out by now.
So as Christians, we have a trajectory of that's heavenly bound, but at the same time, we make pit stops along the way, and some of us veer off the beaten path to do other things, and sometimes we stay on that beaten path. Sometimes we come back. During that time, we're not the only ones doing that. And there's other people who are right for us, who would be perfect, but God's not going to force them to do something that's not according to the path that they're supposed to be walking. And maybe that path, it just veered off to the left and we just missed that person coming in. That could happen. But when God sees that, just like Kyra was mentioning about GPS, God's like, oh, well, let's go ahead and reroute that. So when it comes to like relationships, a lot of the toxic people, they come from trying to force their way into that GPS, force their way into that relationship, because basically they see that I have no future, so I might as well force myself to become a person in this relationship. Or maybe the relationship doesn't even exist, and it's just in your head, and you're like, well, not you, anyone on the call or watching per se, but someone has decided I want a relationship and I'm going to make somebody love me. The truth is, you can't make anyone love you. And when you think that, you kind of defeat the purpose of love because you love out of free will. So when we're kids, we're kind of taught that love is just this thing that will automatically happen. When it's not like that, there's work involved. And some of that work is making the choice and decision to date somebody. And then that person being in cohesion with you to date. Because relationships, they're not really relationships if they're one-sided. And if they're one-sided, you're basically just playing wall ball. If you remember playing wall ball as a kid, you had a ball, you throw it at the wall. And I mean, it's kind of fun, but then after a while it gets boring. Um, it's more challenging to play against somebody. It's more challenging to have a partner, more challenging to, have a full team. And if you're trying to pursue a relationship, you should pursue it the right way. You should communicate with the person you're trying to date properly. Not hey, God told me that you're my woman. And then, because see, the thing is, God wouldn't not tell her. Um, Now, I have met people who have both received the word at the same time and they got married, but it doesn't work really the other way without God confirming with the other person. So if you find yourself in a relationship with someone that's not on the level, or they don't actually um, believe what you're saying, you're not really in a relationship. Your ship will sink, metaphorically and probably quite literally, because you guys have to be a unit. If you can't build anything if it's divided. Jesus said, "A house divided will not stand." So that's pretty much what you get when you in a toxic situation, especially in a church setting.
We can't over spiritualize this process. Oh, was she gonna?
No,
Kyra,
I was just gonna, yeah, I was gonna chime in a little bit. I was gonna say, with the toxic people, sometimes it's not even the two people in the relationship. Sometimes it's the outside, like it's the deaconess, it's the pastor, like you mentioned earlier. Like it's all these people. Like, oh yeah, you guys, you got this going, you got this going. Y'all should, stay together, work it out, da 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 da. And so it's all this outside noise that makes the relationship that could have been fruitful go downhill because there was so much pressure to keep it going, or like, go ahead and make that next step, and those two people weren't ready to do that. But listening to the outside, they're like, okay, well, they've been in the church 30 years, they're real close to God, like, from what I can see, let me listen to them. Like, let me listen to what they have to say. And a lot of people get stuck in that, and they're going off of hearsay and arranged. Like, I mean, there's benefits to arranged relationships, but some of the ones that people try to put together today it's not what that is. It's not.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, like I was going to say, like we don't have to over spiritualize this to where it has to be like, well, I can only talk to who God tells me to talk to. I think it just comes down to just common sense. Like if you have chemistry and you feel like there's some form of compatibility, and you have a sort of, there's some level of attractiveness there, I don't, go for it. I mean, like, just shoot your shot. I mean, particularly if you're on the same page in the very important areas of your life, go for it. I mean, like, God's not going to say no, no. I mean, again, it's a free will thing. So I mean, like, and it is an important decision, but I think a lot of times people, it's okay to know what you like and what you're looking for, what you find attractive, and it's okay to look for what you find attractive. I think that Christians are adverse to that and try to like over spiritualize the not looking for someone that I'm attracted to. Like, look, I'm not looking for Leah. I'm looking for Rachel. Okay, that's just I'm honest. I mean, I I know what my Rachel would look like, and that's what I'm looking for. And you know, and that is subjective because each person's definition and level of beauty is different because they have their own preferences and things that they like in a person. So it's not going to be the same across the board. And that's why beauty is not like this easy thing to define. But there's Matthew knows what Matthew likes, so I'm gonna gravitate towards that, and that's not wrong. You're gonna like what you like. Kyrie's gonna like what she likes. Reggie's gonna like what he likes, and there's nothing wrong with that. And I think Christians we almost try to spiritualize the stripping away of those desires as something wrong, and they're not. Like there's a reason you're attracted to that, and God's not hating you for liking certain qualities or characteristics or features in someone that you would potentially maybe marry.